Hey, what's up, guys? It's Siloh with iHeartConCap. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If this is your first time, I just want to give you a quick rundown and what we do here and who we interview. We interview real CEOs from real companies making a real impact in the world through sustainability, impact investing, social impact, you name it. iHeartConCap is short for iHeart Conscious Capitalism. Now, each show is loaded with important lessons that will help you create a thriving company culture, discover a foundation for values. And if you're not familiar with who I am a social entrepreneur, author, podcaster, awarded Esquire Magazine Top 40 Under 40, Las Vegas Hometown Hero, and recognized by Future Sharks and Entrepreneur Magazine. Today, we have the amazing Jack Phan. And if you don't know who he is, let me introduce you. Jack Phan is a serial entrepreneur and an online media executive. And after his first company was sold in 2001, which later became Home Advisor, yep, you heard that correctly, he co-founded ReliableRemodeler.com, which ranked number 187 on Inc.'s 500 list of fastest growing companies, which he exited to Quinstreet in Bay Area of 2008. Now, Jack has held roles as vice president at Digital Trends and president of Money Crashers. Today, he serves as the CEO and founder of PhanZu, CTO of AGEIST, which is a really great website. He's also the board member of DollarFor, which we're going to get into, and is the once uncle to the fan base of Kpop sensation Twice. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for our guest today, Jack Phan. Jack, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure.
So that was a mouthful, and hopefully we can get into some of your bio while we're on the show today. But I know that we have a few areas that we want to cover. I want you guys listening to follow me for a second, because this is going to be one interesting show. We're going to talk about, and you and I have talked about this before, we're going to talk a little bit about Kpop. We're going to talk about pirates. Yes, you heard that correct. And we're also going to talk about what you do, which is the forgiveness of medical debt through DollarFor, which is really, really good stuff that you're doing and really important. With that being said, let's go ahead and start off. And I want to start off going into how'd you get all this started? What's your origin story? And a great place for us to start would be pirates.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's start with pirates. So my family were refugees from Vietnam after the Vietnam War. So we ended up on a refugee boat, leaving Vietnam, my father, my mom, and my sister. And we were at sea before we were robbed initially by pirates. So the first group of pirates came on and took all the belongings of these boats. These refugee boats usually have a lot of belongings and treasures and gold from people who are leaving the country. And so we were robbed by those pirates. A second set of pirates came afterwards and realized that there was nothing on the boats, and all the possessions had been taken. So instead, they took the kids that were on the boat. And I happened to be a couple months old back in 1978. And I was kidnapped by pirates in my early stages of life. So that is the origin of my story, is leaving Vietnam and being a captive of pirates while I was only a couple months old. So that led me we were eventually reunited. The Thai Coast Guard came out and found the ship and realized that there was a ship full of pirates and kids, which meant there must have been a refugee boat out somewhere further out. And they did find my parents and reunited us by the time we got back to shore. So hopefully I ended up with the right parents, but I believe everything worked out. And so we were over there in Thailand for a couple months before they realized who my father was, which my father was a high-ranking official. It's a whole nother story if you want to get into, spies and CIA and FBI type of scenarios. But because my father was a high-ranking official as well as the general for the South Vietnamese Army, we ended up making it to the U.S. very, very quickly. And we settled here in Portland, Oregon, since I've been here ever since 1978 until now, and became a U.S. citizen in 1991 and never looked back.
Well, first and foremost, congrats on becoming a U.S. citizen, and also congrats on reconnecting with your parents. That's an incredible journey. A little bit of a question that's not so serious. How many of those pirates are wearing one-eye patches?
I wish there were pictures. I wish it was the day of social media where somebody could be taking pictures of what actually happened. But yeah, those would be. I don't think the pirates of those days are similar to the pirates of what we hear about today. So
yeah, I've never met met one, so I don't know. But now you're here in the U.S. You're a citizen. What led you to the businesses that we heard about in your intro?
Yeah. So, I grew up in a family where my father, worked really diligently as an entrepreneur. Once he came to the US, he realized he had to support the family. So my father owned an upholstery business. I watched him throughout my childhood, kind of building this business and working with customers. And I was there, translating for my parents, at a very early age, and had a chance to see how to interact with customers and, the business and the value propositions that the business was offering. But, it was very, very low key enough to make ends meet. I went to college at Pacific University in Forest Grove, Oregon, and I was actually going into the medical field. They had a school of optometry there, and it's something that I was going to pursue. But it was the mid '90s, and the internet age had just started to boom. So I got involved with a startup back in the day called Handyman Online, and that company was about matching homeowners to contractors, online lead gen business, basically before lead gen businesses really existed for home improvement. And so we created the first model for that business, ended up raising about $26 million in venture capital out of the Bay Area and in Chicago. And then, so we grew that, and I left school and I started working on that business as the CTO for that company. And eventually that company sold to what is now Home Advisor. So that was my first experience as an entrepreneur working on a startup business with outside funding. So that was an amazing experience. But after that, I ended up starting a second company doing the exact same thing called Reliable Remodeler. But this time we had the advantage of Google. So Google was beginning to get some traction with their search, and we would go in and start buying keywords for SEO, such as kitchen remodeling, Portland, Oregon, roofing contractor, Seattle, Washington, painting contractor, Dallas, Texas. And so anytime somebody searched for these terms within Google, in the early days, we would come up. And so we ended up growing that business very, very rapidly with our own capital, bootstrapped. And we did that for 7 years, servicing 75,000 leads a month with over 15,000 contractors nationwide. Wow. So we grew that business, and then by 2007, we were recognized by Inc. 500 as the 187th fastest growing company. And with that came a lot of attention from investors as well as companies. And eventually we sold that business in 2008, right before the economy crashed, by the way, and to Quinstreet out of the Bay Area. And we never looked back. And that's created a lot of opportunities for me to begin to help other founders and entrepreneurs work on building their businesses, as well as understanding the ins and outs of being an entrepreneur.
Obviously, you're not a one-hit wonder. That is incredibly impressive.
Yeah, no, it was incredible. The first one, because we had so many investors, even though it was sold, it wasn't one of those things where it was very lucrative. Something I learned very quickly early on, that when you give up equity to a business, you're giving up a lot when it comes time to sell. So even though the legacy of what I built lives on in Home Advisor, I built a second business, bootstrapped, and that's the business that I really made good fortune from selling that company.
Gotcha. So that's why you went bootstrapped with your own money with the second company.
Exactly. It was about building it on our own. Luckily for us, taking advantage of Google. The first business was all about Yahoo directories and online lead generation. It was early days of the .com, right? And so in the mid '90s was land grab, but by the early 2000s, it was about innovation. And when you have companies like Google and search and other types of solutions that were popping up, we challenged what was out there with what we had learned and what was new and innovative, and we took advantage of that, and it was very successful to be where we were.
All right, so bring us up to today. I'll leave it up to you. We could go into Kpop first, or we can go into DollarFor. So I will leave where we go next up to you.
Well, let's start with Kpop, and really the following that I've grown on Twitter myself. So, after I sold my second business, I ended up working with a lot of founders, mentoring different founders and CEOs and entrepreneurs. And, there were occasions where I would join onto these companies as an executive to help grow their business. Digital Trends was one of those businesses where I met the founders, Ian Bell and Dan Gall, and helped them grow that business, a digital tech media company, into one of the largest tech media companies in the world. So we grew that company. In that process, part of my job was to grow audiences. And so we, grew social media audiences for Digital Trends, which they had a couple 100,000 before, but they were in the millions by the time I had gotten everything working full functionally. So, but with that, I grew my own following because I had access to, fast cars and new cell phones and the latest TVs and some of the tech gadgets that were available. And so I would share these things. And with that, I grew a significant audience, sharing about entrepreneurship, sharing about mentorship and technology as a whole. So I grew to about 1.2 million followers, actually a little over 1 million followers in tech mostly. Fast forward to 2019, which was last year. I'm watching the Apple event like I do all the time, every year, keeping up to the latest trends in tech. And during the Apple event, I saw on Twitter that there was something trending ahead of it, which was blowing me away, because when the Apple event goes on, as you know, it's the number one thing that's trending in the world. And so for that day, this word Momo was trending worldwide. And I was like, what is Momo? So I took that and I tweeted out, Apple event's happening right now. But Momo is trending ahead of it. What is Momo? And boom, this flood of K-pop fans came at me and tweeted and responded to me and told me who Momo was, and that who Twice is, and the different members and the songs, and that they're a girl group from South Korea. They're the largest girl group, the most successful nation's girl group. It was just like fascinating. And so I was just thrown into this K-pop world where fans would share with me and tell me all about K-pop. And the more I dug into it, I was fascinated just by how engaged these fans were. And the more I engage with the fans, the more I engage in promoting the comebacks that were happening at that time for Twice. It was just something that the fans really adored of me, and they started calling me Uncle, and eventually Once Uncle, which was an adoration that I love to this day, just the respect they have for me. And so now, I tweet, anytime I tweet anything about Twice or K-pop, fans love it, because this guy with over 1 million followers whose verified account on Twitter is talking about their idols. So I've become the Once Uncle. I went to South Korea and attended one of their concerts. I met the members there. During the concert, it was just an amazing experience. And so, this CEO guy who's an entrepreneur, been working his life in tech, is now a K-pop stan for the nation's girl group Twice.
The second I came across your name and your photo via email, because it's in your signature, I said, I know him. And as a matter of fact, I responded back to you with, hey, I think I know you, or you look familiar. I didn't realize who you were. It was absolutely killing me. And I remember going to sleep that night just trying to figure out, who is this guy Jack and why does he look so familiar? Because you and I have never spoken before that, before our intro. I'm on Twitter. I go to your Twitter account just to kind of get a feel for who you are before the interview. Then I start to see Twice, the girl group, and I go, wait a minute, now I know who he is. I was like, first and foremost, I'm following you, and I've been following you for a while. But what really sticks out with your Twitter posts is the Twice group that you post on your Twitter account. And that shows up in my feed constantly. And as soon as I saw them on your Twitter feed, I go, that's who Jack is. He's the guy to keep promoting this K-pop girl group. And so I obviously went into their Twitter page, started going through some of their music, and you're absolutely right. Huge group. They're everywhere. And
they are.
Yeah, they do a lot. TV, I think they do some dramas, or maybe they're on TV shows. And
a lot of variety show, game shows. Yep.
Yeah, variety shows, game shows, plus they sing and do concerts. And I just don't know how they do it, but they're everywhere and they're really engaging.
They are. And the fan base is just incredible. I mean, the fan base is really what captivated me. The positivity and the energy that comes from this fan base, to adore the group of 9 girls, right? And really connect with them individually. The fan base was just so overwhelmingly positive, where they came to me and said, Uncle, check out this video. Here's how you can learn about Twice. This is their latest latest comeback. The reason Momo was trending was because her forehead hadn't been seen in 4 years. No joke. That's, how that trend, I helped get that trend moving
Wow.
forward. But it's truly incredible, the positivity. There are a lot of young adults in here, or young teens in the fan base, and they love to, engage. But also what I've been doing is helping to inspire them, in life and entrepreneurship, looking at businesses, even with NASA Social. I do NASA Social events, and I get a chance to go watch different launches and get behind the scenes access to some of these missions. And so I brought my light stick with me, the Candy Bong Z, for twice, and everywhere I went, I took a picture with it, in the press room, at the vehicle assembly room. And that brings attention to the fan base. And what I realized was all the fans started to say, wow, I have a fascination with space as well, and I love what you're doing, and thanks for bringing that out. I'm learning about the mission, I'm learning about what's happening, why this is important. And so that's part of this fan base, that there's a lot of positivity that can come from this, even in Kpop, where it's known to have a lot of toxicity and kind of negativity, but the positivity by far outweighs that. Even like when you think about lately during the Black Lives Matter movement, BTS fans, K-pop stands would come together, and they raised $1 million to give to the Black Lives movement,
Wow.
which the BTS matched in that. So it's incredible. There's a lot of positivity, a lot of energy, a lot of activism within this fan base, and I just enjoy being a part of it.
Here's a question for you.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you touch that doesn't turn to gold?
Yeah, I mean, with the successes I've talked about, I've had startups that have failed. So I had a startup in Seattle called Thursday Market. It was this similar idea, but we were taking the social media route with this business, where the first business was about directory, second business was about search, third business we took in the social media realm with the exact same idea. And we took advantage of Facebook's algorithm, the open graph that they had at the time. But by 2014, with, which we hear about with Cambridge Analytica, and all the data issues, we were one of the ones that were affected by that early on when they shut down our access to that data. And so we tried to build that business. We raised some money, a little bit of a seed round with some friends and family, but that wasn't a successful business. That was a business that we were, Facebook ultimately shut us down because of the inability to get access to that data that we were trying to use to help connect homeowners to contractors, so or local services in general. But yeah, not everything turns to gold, I can tell you that. But if anything I've learned, all of the failures that I've had have led to new opportunities and new successes.
How have you learned from those failures?
Yeah, no, I mean, from the standpoint of, people, it's very normal when you hear people say, learn from your failures and have those failures and learn from those to better yourself. And it's very, very true. We've all hit some hard spots, whether it be personally, health-wise, or business-wise. When I talk about the first business, becoming home advisor, to me, that's success. But in the reality, that was a failure as well, because we grew that business, we had outside capital, and we were held to what the investors wanted us to do. And sometimes it wasn't the right decision, but I was naive, I was young, and I did what I thought the investors wanted to do, which was to them was the right thing, where I believed it was not the right thing, but I didn't speak up loud enough. So I learned from that. I took that to my second business and say, you know what? I do know what I'm doing. I have confidence in myself. And some of these things are from my research, my understanding. And I go with my gut on these things. And so learning from these mistakes is very normal. And we have to be able to take the different failures we've had in life to find the success. And if you've never failed, then I just don't know, what you're doing out there to be successful all the time. But the reality is we all fail at some point in time. It's what we do with it that makes us a better person.
When it comes to your general leadership, what's your general leadership style?
Yeah. My leadership style is very much to lead by pulling ideas from other people, right? My leadership style is I don't believe I know everything. I know enough about everything. I'm literally a jack of all trades. I mean, if you go look at what I've done in my life, I've built websites, I've built networks, I've built businesses, I've done marketing, I've done creative designs, and I do pretty much everything, but I do it just enough, right? I always find out that I can go find someone who does it even better than myself, right? And I hire those people and I work with those people. So my leadership style is to harness the knowledge from the people who know it better than I do, but then make an informed decision based on what I learn. And so it's contributed through from all the people that I work with, but I also, at the end of the day, I make the decision based on what I've gathered. That's different from what I learned the first time around, which was they're the ones who are investing the money into my business. Even though I think this is the right way to go, they're telling me that this is right. And so I'm just going to go with what they say. Biggest difference now is I gather that information from people and then I make an informed decision. I research, I understand. And my leadership style has always been about making sure that people are heard, that they have an opportunity to speak on what they know, and why I hire them or why I work with them is because of the knowledge that they have. So we'll make sure that I take their input as opposed to just telling people what to do.
If I'm hearing you correctly, hire smart.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hire smart. You want people who can contribute beyond just their role, but then also feel like they are important. I love to make people feel like their contribution, their knowledge is more important than they even believe in themselves. And that's when if you can create more leaders from the team that you have, then you're a great leader. And that's what I strive to do.
So let's bring it forward into what you're doing today with DollarFor.
Yeah.
We can even tie in your leadership and how that plays into DollarFor. Let's go ahead and talk about that, because I like where this conversation is going and I could see a path, right? So with your first startup, there might have been, and these are just my words, so feel free to correct me, but there might have been a little bit of intimidation there because it's your first business. You've got investors coming in. At that time, they're bringing in big cash and they're saying, hey, this needs to be done. And you're going, well, and they're going, yes, it does. And you go, okay. It still came out somewhat successful, but like you said, the exit wasn't as profitable as it might have been because of the investors, but you learned to follow your instincts. You learned to speak up. You learned to become more of a leader. And you took that and applied it to your second business. And you started that bootstrapping with your own cash. And then that's migrated you now to where you are today, by, again, hiring smart, listening to people around you. Let's bring that to DollarFor and see how DollarFor is doing today. And before we do that, let's go ahead and introduce our listeners to what DollarFor is first.
Absolutely. So, DollarFor is a nonprofit. It was started back in 2012 by Jared Walker, and he was someone who had medical debt and it was going through a challenging time. And he was able to work with the hospitals and found out this law that was available in the state of Washington called the Charity Care Act. And it was available, it actually had been around since 1989, but it wasn't really enforced by the hospitals or had a lot of coverage about it. There were some attorneys that worked on handling that. But what he found out was most hospitals are nonprofit hospitals, and to stay as a nonprofit, you had to, forgive certain amount of debt, every year, or forgive certain debt based on people's income levels. And so as he found this out, he was able to get his own debt completely forgiven because he met the income thresholds. And what happened is, fast forward to 2016, there's actually a federal Charity Care Act, which then puts the status onto each city for each of these hospitals to forgive debt based on people's income level or percentage of the poverty level. And so DollarFor is basically a nonprofit organization, and it advocates for those with overwhelming medical expenses. And what DollarFor does is helps the communication between the patient and the hospitals to see if they qualify for this debt forgiveness. And more often than not, the 100% of the debt is actually completely forgiven. And the hospitals, once they, check up and find out the details of the patients or the clients here, they will, verify the information and write off that debt completely. Other times there are debts that's written off at, 75%, 90%, and then DollarFor uses funds from the contributions, donations that we receive to help pay off that debt. But a majority of the debt, and to date, we have over $2.3 million of debt that's been forgiven, is written off by the hospitals 100%.
I mean, that's incredible. So I have to give you a round of applause for that. So yes, definitely. I want to go back to the debt itself, the medical debt. And is there a difference between someone going into the hospital because they had a late night at the bar and now they're there for alcohol poisoning versus someone who's there because of a car crash and was injured in a
Yes.
car crash? Okay.
So, I mean, there are times where the medical debt, is about required. What do they call that term? Necessary, necessary medical debt. I think is a term. There's another term. It's not coming to me right now. But where the medical treatment was a necessary treatment, then that debt can be written off. Now, obviously, if someone's coming in for plastic surgery or other types of non essential type of treatments, then those that don't qualify. So,
Right.
but from what you're talking about, if it's alcohol poisoning, if it's a car accident, those are both treatable. And those are things that need to be can be written off based off of it was necessary for the patient at that time.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. Because I thought there was a definitive line between what's considered, can be written off and what can't. What is negligence and what is, bystander, not my fault. Negligence is I drank too much. Bystander, not my fault. Is, hey, I got T-boned in an intersection and I had the green light.
Yeah, I think, and I would have to verify this information, and depending on the situations, but those examples you gave should qualify because they're treatment based off of something that is necessary, even though it was negligence from the standpoint of drinking too much. If it's treatment that you received and you fall within the income requirements to meet this Charity Care Act, then that debt can be forgiven. But in most cases, the people that are being getting the debt forgiven falls within the category of someone had an accident, someone had a incurable disease or something that came out of that and created an enormous amount of debt. Most of those cases are cases where that debt has been forgiven 100%.
If we want to talk about social impact here, I mean, there's so much going on here. You have this platform where people can essentially give, and we didn't even get here yet, but give a few bucks to help a family pay off their medical debt that's being written off by a nonprofit hospital. Now, think about the family that's impacted because medical debt is heavy, student loan debt, heavy, any kind of debt, car debt, mortgage, that's heavy. And what you guys are doing is you're coming and essentially walking up to them and you're taking that debt and lifting it off of their shoulders so they can stand straight up again, metaphorically speaking, because it's not so heavy because you're getting rid of that heaviness or a portion of it. Am I right to assume that?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, one of the things we talk about is a medical crisis should not be a financial crisis. We had a family where the father got into an accident, and because of the accident, he incurred a ton of debt. And because of the accident, he couldn't go back to work. So now his income was very low for a family, I believe was a family of 6 with 4 kids. He and his wife and 4 kids. His wife still worked, and I think she made good money. But with a family of 6, the income requirements are actually much higher. And so, it's based off a percentage of the poverty line, but then also based off of the amount of people in your family. So to give you an example, here in the state of Washington and Oregon, and again, it varies by state based on poverty levels, the requirement is 300% of the poverty line. Well, that puts a single earner at 300% of the poverty line making less than $37,000. Well, there's a lot of people that make $37,000, and that's kind of medium, income, right? It's not necessarily poverty. And so if you make less than, $37,000 for a single individual, and you have medical debt, any type of medical debt, it can actually be forgiven by the hospital. We've had debts as small as $12 be forgiven by the hospitals. And we had a single individual who had $57,000 completely removed. Now for families, it starts going up. So if you have a family of 6, like that guy I was talking to you about, there was $150,000 in medical debt that the guy incurred. He's unable to work. His wife is now this single income earner in the family. They have 4 kids. That threshold was close to $170,000 in income requirements.
Wow.
So if it's less than $170,000, and again, I have to look up the exact numbers to verify that, but I believe it was $170,000. And with that family of 6, they qualified. And so when they filed the information with the hospitals, making a claim that this debt should be written off due to the income levels of this family of 6, 100%. was written off.
Wow.
$150,000 completely wiped off. And so that's the incredible part, is, it was a medical crisis. They just didn't know how they were going to survive. I mean, how are we going to pay off 170,000 on a single income or 150,000 on a single income? It was just something that became a financial crisis because, the husband had a medical crisis. And so what we found is there are tons and tons of stories like this. If you go to dollarfor.org, you can read some of the stories of people who have had these medical crises, and thought that it was the end, like, either file bankruptcy or, the credit was going to be shot, or, spend the rest of their life paying off this debt. Well, once you look into the right information, gather the facts, and provide that to the hospitals, they will write that off. And DollarFor will get donations from people. We do have a program where people can donate just $1, right? $1 a month, right? And we have several thousand people signing up, donating at least $1 a month. And that goes to help, pay off additional debt, as well as just pay for the work that goes into doing the paperwork and filing and getting these hospitals to write off this debt. Most families are in shock after their debt's forgiven, because they don't know what to believe. Is it real? Is it, suddenly it's $150,000 completely gone? It's just unfathomable for some of these people. And so DollarFor is now, I joined the board, and I'm looking at what they're doing, and it's such a great cause that we want to make this more visible to people. And I know your listeners out there are people who have medical debt right now. It could be a small, like I mentioned before, there's a $12 debt that was written off by a girl who had, just a small debt, but she was making, I think, 20 something thousand dollars a year. Well, that debt qualifies. And so knowing the facts now, and being able to have someone like DollarFor be an advocate for helping you get that debt eliminated. Now, you can go out and get this debt eliminated on your own. I mean, most people, you can read up on the law and understand what needs to be done, and then go do it on your own. But DollarFor will do it for you, for free. So, we have attorneys pro bono on staff as volunteers as well to handle these situations. So it's one of those things that I was just amazed at, that this existed and it was available for pretty much anyone who needed it.
Well, I think anyone listening right now is amazed, so including myself. I love the fact that it's also grassroots. I can go to your website, probably $5 in my back pocket, could probably go get a coffee, or I can donate this and help a family relieve their medical debt. I feel good, right?
Absolutely.
I feel really good. And I can justify what I did with that $5. Yeah, I can go get a cup of coffee for $5 and feel good for 10 minutes, but then the feeling's gone. But that $5, if I go to dollarfor.org and donate that to help a family relieve some of their medical debt, even if it's just $5, I'm feeling good all day. I'm feeling good for the rest of the week.
Absolutely. I mean, that's why we try to share these stories of these families that, have had their debt forgiven, to help inspire and get people to give that extra $5, whether it be a monthly contribution or one-time contribution. It helps. It all goes towards the team that we have in place to ensure that people get their debt written off. We've had a family that is now on the board for DollarFor as well after her debt was written off. And she's like, now that that's been completely lifted off my shoulders, I can give back and help out even more families. And, because DollarFor was able to completely eliminate the stress and the financial crisis that came with that. And so if people want to feel good, there are a lot of different ways to do it. I always encourage people to, donate where they can, when they can. But like you said, a cup of coffee a month, right? Donate 1 cup of coffee a month, and that will go a long ways towards helping a lot of families.
Absolutely. Here's what I want to do. Now, I'm coming from the point of view of someone who has medical debt. Now, to give you an example, I have medical debt. How do I get involved with you guys?
Yes. So you can go to DollarFor, and you go to DollarFor and see if you qualify. So, you go there, and there's a place where you just check if you qualify, and you enter your information. There's a tool we have on there that will look at your income levels and the debt that you have, and the information there will then tell you, based on the information you've gathered, whether you qualify to have 100% of it forgiven, 90% forgiven, 75% forgiven, or the different percentages. Once you get that information inputted there, and our team will then do the work for you. So you give us your information, your bills, the hospital's information, and we'll go and communicate with the hospitals. And within a couple weeks, on average, it takes about 5 weeks for that. Sometimes it takes a week, maybe a couple days, but on average, it's about 5 weeks where our team will go in and you may receive collection letters or stuff like that. It actually, we will make sure that stuff that never goes to collections. It never hits your credit, and that debt is written off and cleared from those hospitals.
It sounds like, this is not a pun here, but it's pretty painless. I mean,
it is pretty painless. That you're 100% accurate on that. I like that.
Now, sidestepping. Now I'm someone who wants to get involved and I want to donate my cup of coffee every month. How do I get involved?
Same thing. Go to DollarFor.org. There we have a button that says donate, and you go there and you can donate a one-time donation, or you can sign up to donate as little as $1 a month on a subscription, or $5 or $10 or whatever you want it to donate. We have a lot. I think we have to date several thousand people who are on a subscription, kind of like a Patreon type of model, where they say, hey, I can donate a cup of coffee every month for as long as I can, knowing that this will help families lift the financial burden that's on them. So it's one of those things where it's, again, painless to go and give money as it is to get your debt written off.
I have a question. The first two companies that you had, yes, learning opportunities, but I'm trying to figure out where the dots connect, because the first two companies primarily were companies that were made and built for profit. Now your third company that you're involved in has a strong social impact and a strong social mission. So where was the switch in between business 2 and 3 that made you go, hey, I'm going to go over here because these guys are doing great things in the world?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I have multiple businesses and projects that I work on, actually. So, I'm still the CEO over at PhanZu, which is my company. But again, what I've realized is helping people, with the resources that I have and the knowledge that I've gained, being able to help other founders and businesses and whatnot is something that is just part of me giving back. Beyond any financial contribution, is being able to give back in a way that can help nonprofit like DollarFor be even more successful. They're a nonprofit, and so doing some of the marketing or doing some of the business connections or giving exposure and reach to audiences can cost money. And sure, they can raise money, or they can get donations and use those donations to grow the business that way, the nonprofit that way. But for me, so I sold my second company when I was 31. I thought I was going to retire. I thought, I could just live off of everything I made and just enjoy life, right? But I didn't enjoy life just sitting around doing nothing. And the world was changing rapidly, and the impact that I could give to the world was beyond, anything that money could buy, right? And so for me, it was just, okay, if I can help through my reach, my, millions of followers, or the businesses that I work with, and the contractors that I've worked with who can also, donate their time, volunteer their time, it's so much more impactful. And so even as a for-profit, I always tell people and entrepreneurs and founders that you should be focusing on why your business, why you want to be an entrepreneur, why your business exists, what good are you doing for the world. And when you have that figured out, that why can put you in a direction and a motion where your passion goes into making that successful. And when you become successful, then what you're doing will then make money, right? So for a for-profit, the success comes from achieving the goals of why you exist as an organization, and then the financial results comes with the success of that. For a nonprofit, it's not much different, because the success from the impact of what dollars are donated into the results. So to date, I think DollarFor has only gotten charitable contributions maybe a couple 100,000 at most, and I'm talking maybe 200,000-300,000 at most. But the impact from the nonprofit has relieved over 2.3 million in debt. And so that is just, the money isn't being used to pay off that debt. The money is being used to partially pay the debt, but mostly to ensure that we have the team on board ready to handle these crises for people without coming out of people's pockets.
I mean, just to put it in really simple terms, if I owed someone $100, follow me for a second. If I owed someone $100 and someone out of nowhere came over and said, hey man, I heard you owe Steve $100, Why don't I just give you $75 to help with that? Yes, thank you. And that's kind of $4. I mean, we're making it really, really simple here, but am I getting that right?
Yeah, I mean, DollarFor, the idea of DollarFor, which I love the name that they chose, was to really help any type of people. If you have $1 to spare, you donating this, we could help a lot of people in a lot of different scenarios. We happen to be focusing on medical debt right now because it is one of the easier things to tackle. Because the law says that we can do it. There's nothing illegal about what we're doing. We're just enforcing the healthcare system that is here for us in the United States. And for the most part, it's broken. When you factor in these Charity Care Acts or the different things that need to be enforced, hospitals aren't going to enforce this on their own, right? They're not going to say, oh, you know what? Based on the debt you owe us, we'll write it off on our own because we know that your income requirement doesn't meet the criteria. They're not going to do that. They're going to send, payment plans. They're going to do things to get people to pay because they need to make money at the same time. But there are situations where we can come in and say, based on the law and based on what you qualify for, the hospital is actually obligated to write this off and completely forgive the debt. So what we do is just incredible. It's actually very easy. Our people give us, $1 here, $5 there, and we use that to help people eliminate, hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. So it's truly incredible. I think the impact of every dollar we have, every $5, it helps eliminate about $5. Or every $5 that is given to us, we help eliminate $100 in medical debt.
That's absolutely incredible. Now, what's in the future for DollarFor? Are you going to be dipping your toe into credit card debt, student loan debt?
Yeah, so we're looking at a lot of different things that we could be looking into. Right now, the medical debt is the one that we can easily work towards. But as different social causes come up, we want to look at DollarFor as an opportunity to raise awareness, bring in donations, and help out more people in a lot of different scenarios. Credit card debt, student debt, all these other things are things that we will be looking at, including activism and different, Black Lives Matter movements or homelessness, for example. These are all things that we could be helping as well. And so right now we're looking to raise awareness around DollarFor as well as getting people to be in the giving mode, right? If you are, I love the way you put it. It's like you have an extra cup of coffee you can give a month. It really can go a long ways. And right now we're focusing on medical debt, but in the future, we hope to be able to expand this to other types of scenarios.
Very good stuff. So here's what we're going to do. So Jack, we're going to go into the part of the podcast where we do 10 questions with Jack. If I had a bell, I would ring that bell right now. So ring, 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 hand claps, hand claps, hand claps. Welcome to the part of the show where we go into 10 questions with Jack. Here's how we're going to do the next few minutes. I'm going to ask you 10 questions, Jack. And with those 10 questions, you're going to give me short, punchy, quirky, and fun answers. The questions are just the same. They're not supposed to be taken seriously. And of course, they're just meant to have fun. So you're ready for 10 questions with Jack?
Let's do it.
All right, let's go. Question number 1. If you were to place a saying on a banner and tie that banner to a single engine plane and have that plane fly around the world, what would that banner read?
What is Momo?
What is Momo?
It's what has made me infamous right now. Just the term "what is Momo" I think would be an amazing banner to be driven around.
Perfect. There's no better answer than that. Question number 2, iceberg lettuce or romaine?
Romaine, all day long.
Question number 3, soup in the summer or gross? What's soup?
Soup in the summer. Noodle soup. Pho, man.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. Question number 4, name one book that you have read in the last 90 days that has changed the way you look at X.
Edge, Turning Adversity into an Advantage by Laura Huang, a Harvard Business School professor. That book has given me a whole new viewpoint on overcoming challenges as well as seeing trajectories in your life when they change and how you grasp and take advantage of that.
Question number 5, go-to breakfast meal.
Go-to breakfast meal is chicken fried steak and gravy. It is literally my favorite breakfast. And if someplace has a really good version of that, I will eat that all day long.
Question number 6, who would make a better president, Mother Teresa or Mother Teresa?
Gosh, let me think about this real quickly. I believe Mother Teresa.
Question number 7, most influential person in your life living today.
Most influential person in my life living today. Gosh, that is a great question. I'd have to say my father. He's now 90 years old. I'm inspired by him every day. Growing up, seeing how he went from who he was to overcoming all the challenges in life to raise me and my sisters and our kids. By the way, he has 16 children, by the way.
Wow.
Another topic, but he is the most inspiring man that I know. And he's, living his life at 90 years old.
Question number 8. Peanut butter, good for you or eh?
Peanut butter is so good for you. late night snack, peanut butter and jelly, or just peanut butter on celery, peanut butter with bananas. I love peanut
butter. Yes, I could agree. I'm addicted to peanut butter as well. Question number 9. Daily routine question. What are the first 3 things you do every morning the moment you open your eyes?
Check my Twitter feed. No joke. I actually go and see what's happening in the world twice because everything that's happening in Kpop overnight is their daytime over there. So when I wake up, I get all the best of that. So check twice. Check my emails, check my calendar, and then that's my day.
Last but not least, question number 10. Go-to song that gets you pumped up.
Go-to song. Why? Again, I have to go K-pop here. The theme here is it has to be twice in K-pop. So, but if you want to talk about a song that really, really gets me going right now, it is actually Twice is from the latest album More and More called Sweet Summer Day. It's a K-pop song. It's light. It's fun. It gets you energized. And end of summer right now, towards the end of summer, but it's one of those songs that gets me going pretty much every time I listen to it.
Very nice. Well, that is the end of the speed round, 10 questions with Jack. So give it up. You survived. Good job. see, just to go back to painless, that was painless as well.
I love it. I love the painless theme here.
Yeah. So, Jack, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and wrap up our show. I just want to go ahead and give people an opportunity to connect with you. Most importantly, give them an opportunity to make an impact in someone else's life through DollarFor. So let's give them your contact info and, of course, the info where they can find DollarFor and get involved.
Absolutely. So you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm on most social media as Jack Phan, so JackPhan. DollarFor.org is the nonprofit. You can go to DollarFor.org and find out all the information about the families that we're helping, as well as sign up to see if you qualify to get your debt relieved, or if you are generous and just want to be able to donate your cup of coffee every month. It's something that DollarFor can help you with as well. So DollarFor is also on Instagram and Twitter, and I'm working to get that more active so we can start sharing some more of those stories.
And it's DollarFor.org, right?
DollarFor.org.
We're going to go ahead and wrap things up. Any parting words for our listeners today?
Guys, I love this podcast. Listen more to Siloh. I think this is a fun podcast to be a part of, and really the impact that it has on the world. I appreciate you having me on the show and sharing things I'm working on, as well as my life story. But I'm excited to check out more of your podcasts in the future and hear about different impacts that people are doing at an executive level, which is wonderful.
Jack, thank you again so much for being on the show. Follow Jack. Check out DollarFor.org. Talk to you soon. Hey, what's